think so.
Dave, are we all set? Yeah? Yep. Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock and read the preamble. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless required by law. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury Government Access channels, Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can visit www.pac-tv.org/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming on Duxbury YouTube, to watch replays and video on demand. Okay, the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next thing is open forum, and open forum is a opportunity for anybody, board members or the audience, if you've brought something that you just want to raise for our attention. Fernando.
Madam Chair, yes, I've got two items. The first is I attended a MMA webinar on MBTA communities and get an update what the status is. And apparently adjacent MBTA communities, there's a deadline. They have to adopt zoning to reflect the new legislation. And also that must be approved by the Attorney General, so in our bylaws and approved by the AG, and then submit a district compliance application. It could be done by the 31st of December 2024, this year. So I just want to, at some point, we need to, I'm sure it's being covered somewhere, but it'd be great to have it on the agenda just to make sure we're on top of this one.
Okay.
And that was the first one.
And it's just to add to that,
Yep.
There's also been some news. I believe one town had a town meeting in which they, I forget what, town meeting vote in which they would not pass
Yeah.
zoning for the MBTA. So there's a lot of interesting, and I know that I think Brian's been keeping track of this, right?
Yeah, we were on the same webinar, it seems.
Same
Yeah.
webinar with Fernando
Yeah.
and Wayne. I think Wayne
Right.
has been also.
Again, what's apparent is that they're stating requirements, and they're also stating what you lose if you don't comply, right? So
True.
there's a carrot and the stick going on there.
Yeah.
And the second item is with regards to the presentation by the Duxbury Bay Commission. We schedule it for 4th of March.
Yep.
Because the chair wasn't available the 26th of February. Unfortunately, the most interested member of the Select Board will not be here on the 4th of March. I was just wondering.
Geez, is that you, Fernando? Oh, you?
It's me.
So I was wondering, maybe we just Amy needs to be there, and it'd be great if she was there. So maybe we can reschedule
we'll
it for
talk.
another date.
We'll talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rainey, did you put that first item on our future agendas?
MBTA.
The MBTA?
Yeah, I just wrote it down.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure, thank you. Amy?
I have one item just following up on our last meeting where we voted our recommendation to town meeting regarding the police department and one of their articles is for replacement guns, and I abstained from that vote as I had heard some concern about pending litigation for the particular firearm that was perhaps what they were looking at. And I did have a good conversation with Chief Carbone. He took the time to discussed this with me. They too had concerns about that. They've assured me that they are not utilizing that gun, that particular gun, and that they have checked and double-checked about the gun that they are considering, and they have, feel that it's safe and it's a good choice. So if we want to revote that, that's the pleasure of the board. As I abstained, it probably doesn't matter if we have a full consensus, but I'm happy to do
Well, you
that.
couldn't do it tonight, but
No.
you can do it on the 4th.
But you're not here on the 4th, so we could do it.
You can do it the morning of town meeting, or you
The
can
morning
just,
of town
or
meeting.
you
Yeah,
can
that's-
just state it during town meeting.
Yep,
Yep, we can do that.
That's probably the easiest.
whatever the board's pleasure. That's it, thank you.
You're welcome. I just wanted to mention for the board members that if you haven't already signed up for the Rotary Trivia Night, you should do so.
All right.
Sign up and, pay your dues. I forgot until today. This is why I'm bringing it up.
Right.
Is that I forgot to do it, and
So we are gonna do it
We are doing
group.
it. We're
And
doing it.
You in?
I believe so.
Okay. All right,
So-
That sounded very enthusiastic.
Well, I gotta double check the calendar.
All right, so
So-
can you tell us how we pay, what we need
I
to
will
pay?
forward that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Forward, yes. Okay. Brian, did you have anything?
Nothing tonight, thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we all have to go. I told Jamie that we were all doing this.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we are all doing it. Yes. Anybody in the audience have anything for open forum? No? Okay, great. So new business. The first new business is to vote, review and vote on the following election-related items with Susan Kelly. Is she going to be here?
She's on the screen.
Oh, she's on the screen.
Oh, wow, you're
The
behind.
screen- The screen's behind us. Hi.
Yes. Hi. Before I get started, I'd like to say that since trivia night is on election day, please come to the polls before you go to play trivia.
Thank you.
So I'm here to discuss in-person early voting for the annual town election. The Votes Act in '22 made in-person voting mandatory for all state elections, but it's optional for municipal elections. And the board can vote to opt in to hold in-person early voting for the town election upon recommendation by the Board of Registrars. So we met, the registrars met on Friday and voted unanimously to recommend to you that you vote to opt in for in-person early voting for the town election. And we would hold that Monday, look at my calendar, Monday, March 11th through Wednesday, the 20th. And we would hold that early voting here in the town clerk's office.
Okay, just in the town clerk's office.
Correct.
Downstairs in the mural room or anything like that. So it-
No, while we're subject to the same election laws with respect to guardrails and giving people space to observe, because the town election is not a partisan election, we don't typically have the interest that we do for people to observe the state primaries and state elections.
Okay. Any questions from the board, Brian?
I do have a question. Is there, I presume since it'll be done during town hall hours, there won't be additional costs incurred?
If they are, they would be minor.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think this is great. I think the more
Anybody-
opportunity we give for people to vote, the
Yep,
better.
fully supported.
Anybody in the audience want to comment or question? No? Okay, can I get a motion?
I move that the select board opt in to allow early in-person voting for the March 23rd, 2024 annual election at the following location during the specified times. In-person early voting will take place at the town clerk's office, Town Hall, 878 Tremont Street, Monday, March 11th through Wednesday, March 20th, excluding Saturday and Sunday during normal town hall business hours.
Second.
So sorry. All in
Good
favor?
song, Cindy.
Aye.
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 That's the first time I've ever done that.
It's okay, everybody
The voice
is
note or
allowed.
something, okay. Allowed once,
Thank you.
right?
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Susan.
Susan.
Work.
Okay, then, we are doing a discussion regarding proposed amendments to the membership charge of the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. And David, I think you're going to present. And there is your name and address, and then off you go. Ooh, actual microphone.
Can you hear me? Does that work?
Yes.
Working?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager, and all here. My name is David Amory, 18 Puritan Road, and I'm also chair of the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. We have 4 on the task force at this point. The other members are sitting here, Lenore White, and Kristen Rapp. We also have Nancy Rufo here, who is our extraordinary town staff person, conservation administrator, who's been very helpful all the way along. And Cindy, of course, Madam Chair, who has been liaison to the task force. So it's been very helpful. We have only a couple of images here to share with you, and then the report is actually quite simple. But you see here the top photo, and you may have seen this before. This is a photograph taken in 2018 of the big storm flooding in Snug Harbor. I don't recall the name of the storm. Others of you may recall it. But it's all the way across Washington Street, and the street that runs up opposite across the road is Beaverbrook Lane, and whoever took this photograph is standing in Beaverbrook Lane. So it's significant, but note the date of 2018, and note also the building right in the middle of the photograph is the dark shingle building. Just last year, that building was raised 3 feet. Interesting to note. The photograph below is an amazing aerial photograph of really why we are all here. Duxbury Beach, the lower portion, of course, is Saquich, the lower right-hand corner, Gurnet. You can see Clark's Island, and that little skinny line that runs up the right-hand side of the photograph is the beach leading to Gurnet Road and Marshfield. In the upper left, we see the west shoreline of the bay, Eagle's Nest, the shoreline behind the cloud. I don't think that's to be foreboding at all, but it's the harbor. And then we can see a little bit of the Bluefish River, Powder Point, and the Back River beyond. It's a wonderful photograph, great for reference. And more than anything, it shows us how fragile the beach is and how important it is to us in this community. And I, personally, I step back looking at this photo. If you haven't been out on the beach lately, walk the beach. Duxbury is the gift of the bay, and the bay is the gift of the beach. So we all know what happens with the beach, and we all know what the consequences are going to be, or certainly have some sense of that. So the sense of urgency that we have as a task force gives us the context from our words this evening. So a summary of actions to date. We've met twice a month since 2023, since January 2023. We've reviewed numerous vulnerability and resiliency reports, local and regional, from the last 10 to 15 years. We've identified coastal high vulnerability priorities, the Barrier Beach, of course, that is the Barrier Beach, and Snug Harbor, plus road elevation projects, bridge elevation projects, land use regulation for flood protection, culvert projects, and marsh migration. In June of '23, we met before you, the board, and recommended 3 priorities. Number 1 was to support the Duxbury Beach Reservation, a no-brainer. Their mission, of course, is to preserve Duxbury Beach, to safeguard the adjacent bays and mainland, and there has been significant progress out there, and more is in the works. And again, if you haven't been out there, I encourage you to take a great walk on the beach. The colder it is, the better. Number 2, to fund a coastal resiliency planning position, for which we have prepared a draft job description. The position would report to the planning director.
Duxbury is one of the very few coastal communities in Massachusetts that does not have a climate sustainability coastal resiliency planner. And number 3 is to protect the emergency access for Powder Point. So these recommendations, you all received unanimous support from the Select Board and will serve and have served as a roadmap for developing and strengthening such essential coastal resilience strategies to protect the community's infrastructure, transportation, business, and natural assets. In July, we held a stakeholder kickoff meeting to seek input from those with a stake or interest in resiliency planning as a resident, student, business owner, property owner, or with other roles or interest in strengthening our coastal resiliency. Stakeholders include the Select Board, municipal and department staff, and town meeting members, voters, all responsible for implementation of task force recommendations. Also, people affected directly by sea level rise and coastal adaptation, and all other Duxbury residents. We've attended meetings of the Snug Harbor Improvement Project to follow the process, the scope of design, and progress of planning adaptation to sea level rise and storm surge. We are all aware of real potential, both for opportunities and unintended consequences. We've attended meetings of the Alternative Energy Committee, the AEC, focused on reducing the cost of energy and alternative energy strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero. May I have the next photo, please, Michelle? Yours. Thank you. If there's any chance of making it larger, is that at all possible? Oh, great. Thank you very much. Oh, this is great. So, photograph here. You may have stood in the position from which this photograph was taken. This is from January 13th, 2024, about 6 years after the photograph we last saw of Snug Harbor in 2018. Looking, if you might not be able to see it from where you are, but in the distance in the center is the flagpole at the intersection of Washington Street, St. George Street, Cove Street, and Powder Point Avenue. But just to the further right from the trees there on the right is the old fire station. Straight ahead is the Bluefish River Bridge. I was wondering to myself, gee, have we had a false sense of security since that 2018 storm? Maybe not, maybe so. But certainly this photograph, thank you, Lenore, it's a wonderful photograph. I was actually standing in a similar location there, trying to take a video, and had to keep backing up so that I wouldn't, with that storm surge, it was moving very quickly. So that's something we need to wrestle with, is a false sense of security. This is an urgent matter. While the task force has made recommendations to the Select Board, supported the beach reservation with their efforts to conduct public outreach and education and engage stakeholders. And we certainly appreciate the time, effort, and support of all those who have participated. Our efforts have been hampered. The loss of the planning director and the DPW director's retirement resulted in staying actions on Powder Point Avenue access project. The loss of the director of planning also resulted in lost opportunity for the town to be able to hire a coastal resiliency planner. And the task force has been working with environmental consultant Woods Hole Group on their proposed Rising Tide signage project, an exciting, effective way to launch public outreach and raise awareness of sea level rise, storm surge, and the urgent need for coastal resiliency. Unfortunately, due to a shortfall in tax revenue and recent state budget cuts have reduced public revenue to the town, as you know. The Rising Tide signage project has been postponed. However, it's imperative that ongoing funding efforts be commensurate with the urgency of the task at hand. So what's next? Where to from here? Again, the town needs to hire a coastal resiliency planner, and we certainly understand the hiring of that person needs to be coordinated with the hiring of a planning director. We understand that. All the more, that just doesn't make it any less urgent. It needs to happen. We need to update our coastal resiliency priorities. We have proposed minor revisions as a draft to the task force charge. For instance, from number 5, we're actually at 4 now, increasing membership from 5 to between 5 and 7, with 2 to 4 members at large to advance resiliency planning and implementation. We'd like to include a landscape architect, where the land and the water meet. That kind of expertise is needed as much as any. And we would want to have a representative attend and participate in periodic town department head meetings. Right now, we are lucky to have Nancy, our conservation administrator, keeping us in the loop. She does attend those meetings and her feedback does help us to enhance and clarify the role of the task force, particularly in the absence of a coastal resiliency planner. We must continue to engage stakeholders, in particular town department staff, such as DPW, Public Safety, and the Harbor Master. Town Manager Rainey Reed, thank you, Rainey, has accepted our invitation to attend task force meetings periodically, the schedule to be determined, and we are looking forward, Rainey, to March 4th. And to wrap up, to continue to pursue grant monies, either with assistance of town staff or through municipal planning agencies and consultants. So we have a lot of work to do, and to all of us, we need all hands on deck. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Looking at the, your draft coastal resiliency task force, and I thought I had seen somewhere earlier your recommendation to increase the number of members on the task force. I'm not seeing that here.
That's at the top of page 2, under
not-
task force membership structure.
We don't have a
We don't
page
have
2,
it.
that's the
Yeah,
problem,
that is
because
a
I'm trying to
problem.
find the changes too.
We don't have that.
We
We
don't
didn't
have a
get it.
page 2.
So the new one, okay, well, the new one is dated, I don't know if this means anything, it's a draft dated February 20th.
Yeah.
That's what this
Yeah, we
is.
have that, we have
Pardon
page
me?
1.
That's what this one is.
We have page 1, but we didn't get page 2 in our packets. That's one of
Oh, okay. And there's
So-
another, it just 2 pages.
It's, the problem is that it's, you've printed on one piece of paper, it's double-sided, right?
Not that I'm aware of, I sent a,
Yeah, so maybe it's on the other page, right? Michelle, you weren't able to write,
So what we don't have is the actual changes that are being requested.
yeah.
Well, this
for
is-
any of it?
No, we have
No,
page
we-
1.
we don't have
We
page
We have
2.
page 1.
Can
Okay.
you read to us
I can
page 2?
certainly have it right here.
You only have 1?
Maybe you could read it to us?
Certainly. What I've done on my copy here is highlight the changes from the original charge. So I'd be happy to read the whole thing,
Yeah,
or
'cause
I
that's
can
what we
simply
don't
read the.
have,
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Pardon
the
me?
most important piece
Most
of the
important piece,
puzzle.
Right.
Okay, great, so the highlighted portions I'll read, or the whole thing.
The whole thing, I think.
Okay,
'cause
task
we don't
force
have it.
membership structure. From 5 to 7 members, and shall be comprised of the following: 1 conservation commission member, 1 a conservation commission member, 1 planning board member, 1 select board member, and 2 to 4 members at large appointed by the Select Board based on qualifications to advance coastal resiliency planning and implementation. Examples of relevant knowledge or expertise may include, 1, environmental sciences, and excuse me, that a lot of this is from the original charge. We've just made some
Right.
tweaks to it. Number 1, environmental sciences related to wetlands, coastal systems, and the effects of climate change. 2, engineering fields related to erosion control, coastal infrastructure, and adaptation strategies in response to sea level rise. Landscape architect. And 4, knowledge of state and federal grant funding opportunities. The next paragraph.
On the changes there in that paragraph.
Yes. Are there changes? Yes, there are.
Now, what were the changes?
The
in that
changes
one?
were increasing from 5 to between 5 and 7.
Yep.
And that increase would be as a result of increasing the number of at-large members from 2 to between 2 and 4.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay? Landscape architect is a
Yeah,
change.
Yeah,
Otherwise, in that first paragraph, it remains the same.
okay.
Okay?
Yep.
The next paragraph, I have the existing here. We've actually have, under the, just looking for the original. Under staffing is quite a bit different. If we look at the original, there is a sentence, and it says, again, the original, the planning director shall be responsible for convening the initial meeting of the task force, and thereafter the task force shall deliberate in regard to their needed short-term and long-term resources to support their work. We've expanded that paragraph. CRTF staff contact participation conservation administrator would attend CRFT task force meetings whenever possible, attend periodic meetings of department heads or appointees from the planning, conservation, water and sewer, municipal services, emergency, police, harbor master, fire, public works, council on aging, and school departments in connection with capital projects and programs addressing coastal resiliency. For example, review adaptation implementation measures, integrate mid and long-term planning into hazard mitigation, emergency response, floodplain development, storm damage protection, infrastructure repairs and improvements. The staff contact will report to this task force following each department head meeting. Then under staffing and administration.
Can I ask a question before we go to
Certainly.
that next paragraph? So you're expanding the participation of staff in this paragraph, and most of it looks like is relevant to the conservation administrator, so Nancy Rufo. So is she in agreement with, because it looks like there's a lot of additional.
That's been our conversation, correct? Yes, yes.
Okay, just.
So
Yes.
she has the space to do this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what
Yes.
we understand, yes.
And
and
Nancy's nodding her head vigorously, all right.
Yes.
In which direction?
Yeah.
Nodding, not
No,
shaking.
thank you.
No, and I
Nancy.
think
That's
the,
great.
the position is not technically a member of the task force, but as a support staff
Right.
to the task force.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to find that as with time and with projects that come on board, and again, between 5 and 7 people. Right now, we're at 4. We want to get back up to 5. We need to. We must. That's the rule. ASAP. But our load's going to increase. And we all the more reason to have a resiliency planner. We are not, Lenore, excuse me, you are a professional in this field. And I apologize if others are professionals in this related field, but we are working as volunteers. And we need a professional to be leading, coordinating this effort with us.
That's why I wanted, maybe jumping ahead to your last paragraph about staffing administration. You don't make that clear in that statement there, right? You say that the task force shall consider necessary short and long-term resources to support their work from planning and conservation departments and the town manager, but you haven't made it. I think you've justified the need for a coastal resiliency resource, right? A permanent staff in there, but you haven't made it in this document. Is that?
We will take that under advisement, certainly, and make that clearer. I think that's a very good point.
We've been asking for this, right? I mean,
Well, we do refer to planning and conservation departments. So if planning department, if the resiliency planner falls under the planning department, we've mentioned it, we don't highlight it.
right.
Just get that back up.
I guess, well, I don't want to, maybe we can discuss that a little bit more
Right.
when you come to the end. I don't want to jump in right now.
Okay, great. Let's see, we are, this is pretty much it. Otherwise, establishment, it's a minor change because of the timing. The Select Board voted to create a Coastal Resiliency Task Force in their meeting of October 24th, 2022. The Select Board voted on the above dated charge to be filled in. So those are pretty much the revisions.
Okay, thank you very much for doing that. Fernando, what you're saying is they didn't make the argument to
I think we should make it explicit.
explicit about
Explicit
hiring a
that
coastal
we need to
resiliency
hire,
planner.
recommendation of the Coastal Resiliency Task Force is to hire a resiliency planner. We need to solve that problem, we don't have money for it, right?
Right.
But at some point, when we come into the conversation next year, with the fact is that our revenues don't meet expected service needs for the
Right.
town, right? And one of them is a coastal resiliency planner, right?
Right.
And so,
So that's gonna be part of our charge to them.
our charge to them, yeah.
Actually, if I step back, if we look at the first page, I was sort of sidetracked by being on the second page. Item number 7 is a new item. And Rainey, you and I spoke about this on the phone
Mhm.
today. Within this draft, number 7 says, coordinate all task force efforts with the planning director and the coastal
Okay.
resiliency planner. But at this point, there is no coastal resiliency planner,
Got it.
so
There's
that.
no planner.
No planner either.
Well, there's no
Right.
planner either, but so it's, how might that, should that language be modified, or
Yes,
it's
I
going to
think-
assume that?
I think that what Fernando's saying is that there should be, 7 should be first, that we want to go about hiring a coastal resiliency planner.
Move 7 up.
Well, actually, no,
Well-
I think it's, sorry, maybe Cindy,
Go ahead.
it's in this page, this is your recommended changes, right, this is your charge.
There are
First-
changes
first
throughout.
part- Yeah, first part is your charge. The
Yes.
charge shouldn't change, right? Your charge is evergreen. I mean, it might change, but this is your request to make changes, right? Your request here is to add additional members
Yes.
and to basically request that we employ a coastal resiliency planner. I think, is that what you're asking for this board to support?
Well, we're certainly asking the board to support a coastal resiliency planner. How
Good.
we integrate that with the charge
Yes.
will
Can I
certainly.
see that? Sorry.
Sorry, it's okay.
So that's how item number 7 was included here, is to try to work in the coastal resiliency
Yeah.
planner, a position that doesn't yet exist.
I think that we have talked about this without really talking about this. We really need to get down into the weeds a little bit about the importance and the necessity of the coastal resiliency planner position. And whether, I have questions, and I'd like to explore a little bit what other towns are doing. We can't be alone here. And I know there's a shortage of planners, so I have to believe that there's a shortage of coastal resiliency planners as well. And so where does that leave us? And is there any opportunities to hire consulting type firms that work with the town? And then that way we don't have full-time staff that is very expensive to the town. I think that, it's a bigger conversation that I would really like to explore.
How might we do that?
That's a very good
I
question.
have some suggestions,
Yep.
if I may.
Good.
My first one is I'd ask that the board hold off on making any decisions on this evening for a few reasons. One, I didn't know there was a second page, so I need time to look at that. There are things you're considering here that are way, way beyond the scope of any committee. When it comes to assigning tasks to staff, that happens at the department head level. But I did want you to consider some other things, and I brought some information with me. In looking at this, you may be aware, in November, Governor Healy announced this statewide coastal resiliency strategy.
Yes.
Are you guys aware of that? And with that, there is the Resilient Coasts Initiative. Are you aware of that? Are you aware that there's also an online survey of 6 questions?
Yep.
What I'd like to do is give you each a copy of this and give me the answers when I meet with you on the 4th. So it'll give you plenty of time to do that, and then I'll submit them to the state, and we can prioritize that. In the meantime, I
That's
need to
great.
get the second sheet that goes with this, and I can take a look at it and see what works and what doesn't work. Because what's interesting about this initiative, there's 78 coastal communities in the state covering 1,300 miles. There are not 78 coastal resiliency planners. I can assure you of that. Of that, are there 30? Maybe, if we're lucky. What do? Are they solely focused on coastal resiliency, or are they something else? Are they considered what's called a Planner 1 or a Planner 2? Or are they a coastal resiliency person / grant writer? I don't know. At this time, last year, actually February 2nd, last year I sent a memo to the Finance Committee and everybody got a copy of it. The request was for an administrative assistant for part-time help for the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. 1 year later, it's turned into a full-time staff position. So a lot's happened in 1 year. We may find that a coastal resiliency staff person isn't what's necessary here, because this outfit operates under the auspices of CZM. We don't have a CZM person, we don't have a coastal zone management person on staff, we have a planner. The state agency takes that over, and the reason they do that is they have a broader brush. They have much more sweeping authority than we ever will. You know, it's similar, it's akin to the example that the Conservation Commission could use. We do have a conservation administrator, but every town in the state uses a state form. We don't have a Duxbury NOI. We have a state NOI. So there's a uniformity there. I think that needs to be considered before we jump in. Again, I'm not adverse to the idea, but there is a process here, and the process does not begin here. It concludes here. The process begins with myself, the finance director, the human resources director, and the department head that would be advocating for this. In this case, the person advocating for it would have to be the planner. Because what if I hire a town planner who happens to be a coastal resiliency expert?
Of course.
It renders this position moot. And so that was why I had called you and said, you know, I'm gonna suggest that you strike that coastal resiliency planner aspect out of there. In addition, I would also suggest that under number 2, you strike the line that says, acknowledge that infrastructure projects likely will require a debt exclusion override. Because that may not be the case. What if it's a grant? What if it's free cash? What if it's what? You know, we don't know.
Right.
So I would never put a funding source for any project in a charge. But my suggestion and recommendation to this board is to not act on this evening. Give us the time to meet to discuss this and further refine the charge, get the feedback from you folks. I can email this to you. I can give you hard copies if you want. I brought them in case anybody wanted to see it.
Yes to both.
But I'll shoot them out tonight, and you can send them out to the group. You guys put together your 6 answers, and I'll be happy to upload them and get them to them right away.
A number of us, actually, I know David at least, and I went to the CZM presentation, their
Yes,
first
yes.
introductory.
Yep, and I have that too. If you need it, I have a copy of that, and I can shoot that out to you too.
Well, there was a seminar sort of thing.
Yeah, I have the
that
slide
went
deck
through.
from it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so we've
Yeah.
done that.
Certainly.
But I think I think you would do well to hold off on acting on this tonight, particularly since the
Oh,
board
no, I
hasn't
don't think we
seen the
can act
second
on
page.
it tonight because we didn't get the other page.
Mhm.
But if you were, my recommendation, I understand you can't really hire a coastal resiliency planner until we get an actual town planner and know what that person's skill set is.
Right.
But I would like to have somewhere in the understanding that maybe in the absence of a town planner that has coastal resiliency skills, that we pursue hiring, I don't know, a person, a company, the state, whatever.
That's the problem, we don't know.
We don't know,
Yeah.
But just so that we,
It may not be necessary because the state may step in and say, hey, this is how we're gonna do it, the same way they do it with CZM.
they
In fact,
might.
it falls under their roof, which is the appropriate place for that.
Just so that we have the understanding that in that charge, that we acknowledge the importance
Mhm.
of coastal resiliency planning.
Clearly, that's why we're talking about it tonight.
Right.
I'm in absolute agreement with that.
Name and address, please, sir.
Mickey McGonigal, 122 Island Creek Road. Just in response to some of the comments of the town manager, is that we have always requested that the person be a full-time position, first part. Second part is most of the coastal towns on the South Shore have one. Third part, I agree that if you happen to hire a planner that has coastal resiliency skills, background training, then you might want to modify that. But considering the fact that it took you a year to hire a planner previously, and it's been 6 months since the position has been vacant now, I think it's going to be probably very difficult for you to deal with that in the near future. Next point, to what Amy said. It might be that you've come to the conclusion that you have to hire a consultant rather than hire a planner if there are no planners out there. And last point, our comments regarding a debt exclusion override. That's clearly your purview. Your purview being the select board with the town manager. But what we've observed, and what you've observed as well, is that most municipalities, including Duxbury, are service-oriented and labor-intensive. That means most of the budget, it goes to personnel. And if you're in a budget squeeze right now, it's not likely to get better in the future. And in terms of free cash or whatever alternative, you already have regular capital items that replenish vehicles for public safety, vehicles for DPW, technology for the schools, that likely take up most of your free cash. So what we're saying is your budget doesn't accommodate something in the order of $1 million or a couple of $1 million, and that in all likelihood, and it's not our decision to make, it's your decision to make, the only way you're going to achieve it is through a debt exclusion override. That's essentially what you've done in terms of the seawall for Duxbury Beach. That's it, just a few comments.
With regard to the seawall, that was a federal reimbursement project, so it was not solely a debt exclusion override. It was, the second phase was the first phase. Yeah. But that, again, for these reasons, you've just explained why I would never put it into a charge. The funding mechanisms, they're simply not necessary.
Mickey, if you're going to talk, you have to go back to the mic, I'm sorry, because for the television audience.
Oh, okay.
It's just not necessary to articulate the reason, the funding sources in a charge. You just don't do it.
Okay, and I agree with that. I'm saying the reality of the matter is it's probably going to be a debt exclusion override.
It may.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Just one note, my name is Lenore White, and I am a member of the task force. We did look at other South Shore communities and tried to find how many other communities. I'm sure you're right, not all 78 coastal communities have one, but we did look at that, and we found the town of Hull to be an excellent example of where they do have one. They define the position, they define the role, and it looks like a great model for the town of Duxbury.
Thank you.
Yeah, they had looked at tons of different.
One thing I did forget to mention is we've sought job descriptions from a number of South Shore towns. We've developed a job description in the format provided for HR. We've submitted that to HR. So we have defined the responsibilities. We have sent that to HR for evaluation. So just as a point.
Thank you.
I guess I need to comment because I feel I would like to exhaust, all of our efforts in trying to, fill this position without, first of all, a debt exclusion for something for operating so to fund a position through a debt exclusion is, is unusual.
I think that was for any capital infrastructure.
Oh, for,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
okay,
the
all right.
infrastructure projects.
Because I can't imagine
No,
ever
no.
doing that. But the cost to the town of these, full-time positions is a lot. So if there are other ways and firms that can be hired, I do think that deserves a consideration.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Rapp. I live at 20 Ryan's Lane. I'm wearing two hats tonight. One of them from the Planning Board. I'm also from the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. And both of those committees believe strongly that we need two planners, one full-time town planner and the second is a coastal resiliency. And I think when we actually had Chris here, he would come to our meetings and he would just say, my days are full. The planning board had him very,
sure.
very busy. And so we believe that these are actually two full-time positions. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm very clear.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Thank
Oh,
you.
I don't disagree with that. I know that we need a planner, and we also need somebody focused on coastal resiliency, whether that's a full-time staff person in the town of Duxbury or an outside firm that focuses on that. But I totally agree.
We need a
with you.
resource.
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rufo, Conservation Administrator. I did want to note that my role in the task force has been very active, mainly because there's nobody else. Once Chris left, I really had to step up and support the task force. And I would envision once a coastal person is hired or a new planner is hired, that my involvement would probably lessen. But I'm certainly willing. I think my role, I've been able to make it work. So I'm happy to do that.
We thank you for that,
Thank you,
Nancy.
I guess, Kristen, thank you very much for pointing out the two hats. I think it raises a question. The point made a few minutes ago about wondering what skills and expertise a director of planning would have related to coastal resiliency. And if the thought is to keep that planner separate from a coastal resiliency planner, and even is there any reference to coastal resiliency planning in the job description of the planner at this point? But two is if the two hats or the two people are quite separate, obviously working together, is it necessary to wait for a planner to be hired before actually trying to hire a resiliency coordinator, resiliency planner?
The answer is yes, because that person would be subordinate to the planner. The planner would be the department head, and this person would not be.
It's
not a separate department.
I understand. Not a separate department. And again, I'm a novice to all this.
That's fine.
But if a resiliency planner is found, because if someone can be found, there are fewer of them, you want to grab that person. Could that person fill that role with a clear understanding that when the planner is hired, the
Could be.
reporting whom to
Yeah,
whom
but
is made clear up front?
A couple of things. The position doesn't exist, and there's no funding for it currently.
Well, I just think as we as a task force, what else can we do to get this thing rolling?
Well, we're doing it. I just had suggested I was going to give you the information to fill
I
out.
appreciate that, of
We're going to
course.
meet,
Yes,
we're going to see the
yes.
second page. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. So I just raised the question, what is there about resiliency planning in the planning director's job description? I'm not sure there's much.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any. And if that's the case, the resiliency plan, the director of planning is hired, then there's more lead time to be able to hire a resiliency planner. How many years out are we before that actually happens? Is there any opportunity to figuring out a way to hire a resiliency planner even before a planner is hired? So that was it. Thank you.
Fine. David, we hear your urgency, and we agree with you. We just need to, as a board, working with Rennie, figure out how we're going to do this. Coastal resiliency is important, and we need to, as a town of Duxbury, we need to do something. So it's on our agenda, and it's our responsibility working with Rennie to find a solution to this.
We will keep it on the agenda.
When I meet with you on the 4th, I'll go through the process as to how positions get created, so you have.
That would be great.
Better clarity.
That would be
But
great.
again,
Our
I-
meeting will be
I
dedicated to
encourage-
your time.
I encourage you, I keep, thinking that a lot of this conversation could be solved if we were using an outside source, an outside firm that wouldn't have to answer to a planner that is not yet hired and is not a staff person, but again, working for the town, but as an there's got, I would think that it would be a very good business opportunity right now to be a consulting firm that focuses on coastal resiliency. So that, maybe that is something that could be explored, and would cut through a lot of the, I hate to say it, but the red tape that we get stuck in.
And I think that's a great idea. I think I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be the same kind of demand, if not more, for a consultant in the coastal resiliency field now than there is a demand for sand for the beach.
Yep.
And it's, so I think that would give us a terrific framework to work from as a task force, to think of it in those terms.
And a question to ask the Resilient Coasts Initiative, what are you gonna do for us?
Yes.
Because
Fund us.
the question you ask the Coastal Resilience Initiative people,
Oh, I see.
you call them up and say, this is wonderful, now what are you gonna do for us? Are you basically providing us staff at the state level to deal with our coastal resiliency issues? And if that's the answer, then maybe we're done.
I read that, and it's interesting
Why not?
Because it sure feels that way to me.
Well, I read it and I found the same thing. They're going after $2 billion
Yes.
in federal money to
Right.
fund this thing.
Yep.
So, $2 billion, nationwide, but they know that there's money out there, and they know that it's gonna probably disappear. So they're well aware of the fact that now's the time to, throw your hat in the ring. So thank you for bringing that up, Randy.
And what-
Brian wanted
sorry,
to.
go ahead.
Just briefly, not to add to anything that's already been said, I think we've beaten this up pretty well. I just want to acknowledge and recognize David and Lenore, Mickey, and Kristen for your work. We're very fortunate in this town to have terrific volunteers, and I know in particular this has been frustrating in not having staff, but you're giving of your time, you're reading the reports, you're trying to make recommendations, you're trying to move the ball forward. And I just want to acknowledge that you're doing that. We appreciate that, and we're just banging into some of the reality of funding municipal operations, that sort of thing. But I want to encourage you to keep on trucking, so to speak, and just thank you for all your hard work on this.
Well, thank you. I would just say that I thought the learning curve was steep when we started.
It's getting steeper.
Well, thank
All
you.
right,
guys.
any other
Thank you very
questions
much.
for- David, this is yours, I think.
Can I give you these? I've got,
Oh, is this yours?
just to justify my having made copies.
I think that was,
Oh, yes, you
There's,
can.
there's 5 each
Yeah.
of each document. I'll
Yeah.
email them to you anyways. You can just email me your comments.
Thank you for that, Rennie.
And Madam
Appreciate it.
Chair, maybe you can answer this question, but I recall from our past discussions on this topic that many of the grants that are out there are linked to some type of a survey that needs to occur that values the properties that are affected by climate change, and without the monetary values. Did you hear this?
No.
Did you recall this? And David, can you speak to this, the grants that are only available if you have, maybe Chris Lutazzi talked about it, but there are grants out there that are available, but are based on having an analysis of the values of the properties that are, right, Lenore is shaking her head. And
Yeah, I'm probably not the person to be able to address
Are we
that.
anywhere close to, is there any efforts being made to do that type of analysis, or working with the assessing, I mean, we have that information. I think
Right.
it's just accumulating it, and then you'd be eligible for many more, it's my understanding, more grants.
Yeah, I don't know that there is anything, and I'm hoping maybe that this coastal resiliency initiative that Governor Healy has proposed maybe ties into that. That's what I'm thinking, maybe that's the link, but I don't know whether or not there's enough information for us to put anything together.
Check with Chris Latazzi and see if she's the one that, I've not heard, and
Yeah,
I've been on, I
it's a
have not
certain
heard.
grant, Mike McGee spoke of it one night too.
Yeah,
It's a
there's a number of grants out there, I mean.
Unfortunately,
Al-
requires somebody to do some work.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it does,
At-
but, you know,
at
we're
one of
wondering
the-
what we
We don't
can
have
do.
that coastal resiliency planner to do.
I-
Oh, yeah, well,
At the, one of our meetings, I had gone online to find out, where did this, let's follow the money, where does this grant money go? And I was so surprised to see so many other communities. Plymouth got over $1 million grant money to do a culvert. Granted, it was part of a larger project, Tidmarsh Farms, if you're familiar with that. But that was over $1 million, and the list was on and on and on for 1 year. So there's a lot of money out there. So we need to, as one of the changes was, to follow the money and apply for those grants.
It's time and
Money, it's always
Money.
money, it's money.
money.
thank you all for coming, and we will have you back again really soon.
Thank you.
Clean
Thank
this
you.
up.
Thank you very much for all that you do.
I'll see you on the 4th.
Bring your boots next time.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Randy, looking forward to it.
Yep, thank you.
Lenore, that's it, thanks, it's getting there. It's a great photo of the
Oh, yeah.
non-Bluefish River.
There was so many
Bridge.
people out there.
Crazy. Okey-dokey.
Yeah, I think your house was underwater then.
Oh.
Almost, though.
Do I need to go to the third? Okay, ARPA funding, I think that's next.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about an ARPA request, and I think it's being presented by Mary. Hi, Mary.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. So tonight you should have in your packets two handouts from me. One is a memo detailing 3 additional ARPA requests that I am bringing before you for your support this evening. 2 of those items relate to the school department, and 1 is for the fire department. We are joined here tonight by our superintendent as well as our fire chief, who will speak to those projects in just a moment. I do want to summarize for you that we are asking for your support in $388,550 of ARPA funding to support 2 school projects and 1 fire department project. At our last meeting, when I presented the previous set of ARPA requests, we had talked about the available funding that would be remaining in the ARPA program. Since that time that we had gotten together, some things have changed with respect to the ARPA programming, which freed up some funding and made it possible for us to go back and take a look at some of the additional capital requests that came in from our department heads this year that were unable to be supported in the first round of the capital program. So we've prioritized those requests and brought forward 3 requests to this board this evening. And so if we can get started, I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent, and she can address the 2 school projects, and then we can hear from Chief Reardon.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Good evening, Danielle.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come before you to put some additional requests forward that we would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to act on this year. The first one is we had requested in our original capital presentations 2 new PA systems, one for the Alden School and one for the Chandler School. And when we went through the first round or many rounds of discussions about the many capital requests that we had this year, the funding was only available at that time for us to do one of the PA systems, which we had determined Chandler School was more in need at that time. And so this evening I'm here to request the additional funding for a PA system at Alden School, which is cost is $109,549. And as I'm sure all of you know, PA systems are an essential part of communication that we rely on at the schools, especially at our elementary schools, especially when we have any kind of emergency event where we need to get in touch with classrooms to be able to communicate with our teachers and our students and be able to make safety announcements, lockdown announcements, even just announcements on a regular basis if we have the need to call the rescue for a student or staff member. And so PA systems are an essential part of our operation and definitely one that's an essential part of our safety and security plans. Our current PA systems are very, very old, and they are being held together with wires and tape and Band-Aids, and it's a miracle that they're still working. And so this is a really necessary upgrade, and we would be really grateful if we had the opportunity to replace both of them at the same time. And the other projects that we are requesting funding for is our phase 2 of our safety and security upgrades. And we came before you a few years ago, and we had an executive session type meeting where we talked about some of the safety and security issues that we have in the schools. And since then, we've continued to try to check off as much as we can to make our schools safe and secure as possible. This additional request, which I believe was $200,000, is that correct, Mary, would address what we consider to be a really essential need in the schools that we wouldn't be announcing at the meeting this evening, but we certainly would, the school department, school committee would be glad to meet with the select board if more detail is needed. But this is something that, project that we did not have the correct quote for at the time when we had that other meeting, but we definitely did discuss the items we would be purchasing with this funding during that meeting that we had. I think with these projects, we would really be in good shape. We had also requested at the time that we met a few years ago that we would like to enclose our 4 open classrooms at the high school. We had prioritized that project, and I believe this year that is something that we will be able to do through capital funding as a project. And so those are the 2 requests that we are here to put before you tonight.
Okay, thanks so much. Any questions from the board? Brian?
I do on the safety measures. I understand it's sensitive, and I just want to point out that I wasn't on the board when these were
Right.
first brought up, so I did have a separate conversation with Mary today so I could educate myself as to what, I'm not just writing a check for $200,000 without, finding out what it is, and I think it's certainly a necessary component. So
An
I'm
unfortunate but necessary.
Yes, so
component.
I'm supportive of it. And then just with respect to the PA systems, I know that we had previously voted in favor of Chandler, and I just want to reassure myself, and I know these are important, they're very expensive, but these are obviously high priority requests that supersede whatever else might be on the list, so to speak. My concern being is, if we're funding this, these 2 systems, that there's not something immediately behind it that's of an emergency nature that also needs to be funded. I want to make sure that we're expending these funds responsibly, and I have no reason to doubt that we are, but I just want some assurance that where we have a couple of systems that are in really bad shape, that there isn't something else maybe right behind it that's also going to put a hit on the books, so to speak. And I know there's always going to be a list of things that need attention, but what I'm trying to say is, these systems are important, but are there other systems that we're also going to be asked to put money toward that are just as important that maybe I don't know about yet? That's what I'm asking.
There is a balance in unallocated funds. But
Do you mind if I?
Can you talk about that?
Just sort of in the grand scheme of things, I don't want to speak for Danielle or any other department head, but Brian, to your point, there is a never-ending list of items that need to be addressed across town. We thoughtfully looked at all of the items that were being requested across the capital plan for this year, and focused on drilling down into the next level of priorities with respect to the projects that we're bringing forward to you this evening. But suffice it to say that there are equally as many other important projects across town and across all of our departments that people would advocate for. Given that this is a communications issue, it's also a safety and security issue. It's potentially utilized or needed to make public safety announcements from our police and fire departments. And it was also highly supported or requested by our IT department, because they spend a lot of time taping this together and praying that it works. And we need to make sure that we're providing the tools to not only the school district, but our other departments to make them efficient as well. But there's a never-ending list of projects that we could talk about.
I think that's why I was smiling when Brian was asking that. I think because we have so many needs in our buildings, I think what we really need to do is work together with facilities, with IT, with our police and fire department, just to really look at what are the most essential needs year by year. And that's why we have the long-term capital plans. And I would say for sure that out of all the capital requests that we have this year and heading into next year, the PA systems are the ones that I would say are the most likely to fail at any moment. And so I don't think we have in the school department have any other more pressing needs than the PA systems. However, we did have a lot of needs for technology, infrastructure, devices, and other projects this year that we are in the middle of, including bathroom renovations that are just really necessary. So we always prioritize and we try to predict what are the most essential and more likely to have a failure in the middle of the year. And I would say that our PA systems for a number of years have been high on the priority list, but very costly, and we haven't been able to replace them up until potentially this year.
I appreciate that, and I understand we're looking at ARPA funds as well, and there's certainly only certain things we can use it for, so I understand that component. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mary, this is, I'm looking at your ARPA project tracker spreadsheet. And,
Correct.
At the end there, you've added, and we're discussing the school PA system, safety and security, and the fire command vehicle. On the previous tracker, which I don't have a copy in front of, there was something at the bottom. Is that what was on the bottom and no longer now in the list of things to be done, because these items will take their place? What do we have at the bottom there? I seem to remember there was something to do with the water system, right?
That is correct, Fernando. So there was a project that is manganese issues at the Tremont Depot Street wells, and that project was broken into 4 component parts.
Yep.
Tasks 1 and 2 have already been supported with ARPA funding to do the initial design and engineering.
Yep.
Tasks 3 and 4 included an iron and manganese pilot study, as well as a pilot test proposal.
Yep.
Both of those projects are fairly costly projects, and what they also require additional procurement, lengthy procurement. And given not only the list of projects that our DPW and water and sewer departments are already undertaking, and you can see that by the number of ARPA projects you've already supported, it was simply a timing issue as well as a priority issue to defer those projects. And so what will happen is that they will no longer be ARPA funded projects. When we get to that point of getting to tasks 3 and 4 of the manganese issue, then we will be talking about other funding mechanisms. So what we've done is that capacity in the ARPA program has been freed up and is now being brought before, these projects are being brought before you to take that place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
I have one last question for Danielle. Again, back to the PA system, specifically the one for Alden. I recall at some of the finance committee meetings, whether it was this year's discussions or last year's discussions, but there's been discussion, and you had talked about a facilities plan, a kind of a strategic plan regarding the either renovation or I believe there was even talk about replacement of Alden School. And with that being on the radar, spending $110,000 could you speak to that? That would be my concern.
Yeah, so we will actually be requesting to come before you once again in the coming weeks, because last year we came before the select board to have you vote on us moving forward with a statement of interest to the Mass School Building Authority to potentially be accepted into the pipeline for a renovation or a rebuild of Alden School. When you enter the pipeline for MSBA, you don't get to say we would just be interested in a renovation or we're interested in a rebuild. They really guide you to that decision through the feasibility study and doing the close look with your community about what your building structure and systems look like. The important thing about the MSBA process is that one of the important parts of that is that we maintain our buildings and we don't let things go. So that's why we've continued to do roof replacement, bathroom upgrades, because they're needed right now. And those projects, the MSBA projects, if you are accepted into the pipeline, can still take 5, 6, 7 years before a new building is actually ready for occupancy. So we are continuing to look into the potential of us being accepted into that putting our SOI to be accepted into the pipeline, because we weren't accepted into the last round, which took place in December of 2023. And so we'll be hopefully putting forward another application for an SOI in April of 2024, which is why school committee voted to move forward with that. And we also need to have select board approval for that process. If I could predict the future, I would say that given the space constraints in town and the limitations around the Alden School area with historically protected sites in the front and back of Alden School, if I had to predict, I would say that it would be a renovation. We're really looking at windows, dehumidification, air conditioning for the second and third floors of the building that get very, very warm in warm weather. Also, we would like to reconfigure the front entrance for safety and security so that the school opens not into the PAC lobby, and that cafeteria that we have at Alden School is inadequate space-wise for the number of students we have. And so when we look at some of the areas in need, I would hope that a new PA system would able to continue to be used for a number of years. The one that we have right now, I think, gave us our money's worth. It looks like it's from the 1980s. I'd have to ask some of our residents who have been around in the schools for a long time to find out when that original PA system was put in place. So long story short, Amy, I would hope that that would be an investment that we'd be able to continue to use even if we have some renovations to Alden School in the coming years.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, anybody in the audience? No, are we ready? Are we gonna vote on these all together?
Let's do it separate. I'll move that
Okay.
the select board approve the use of ARPA funds for $109,550 for public school PA systems and $200,000 for school safety and security measures, Phase 2, as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danielle.
Danielle.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Danielle.
Mary, do you wanna, are you
And-
gonna present the fire department?
I think we have the chief.
The chief's there.
We have Chief Reardon here with us this evening,
Right, I
and I believe, yeah, there we go.
Okay,
Got some,
great. I didn't know if
some
you wanted to
slides
say
to
something
do.
first.
Perfect.
Hello, Chief.
If we can go to slide number 2, please. Good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this. I have a couple pictures just to show you the vehicle that we're looking to replace. One of them. It's not the specific one, but it shows you basically what we're carrying. I'm just going to give you a little background information on it, and then we can open it up for questions. But we are seeking approval to replace a 2016 Chevy Tahoe with a 2024 Chevy Tahoe. The vehicle being replaced will have 9 years of frontline service and upwards of 130,000 miles on it when the replacement vehicle is received, if this is approved. The vehicle has been outside since purchased, and it's used 24/7. Our emergency vehicle technician reports significant corrosion, which includes the drivetrain. Additionally, the warning light system is beginning to fail. Our emergency vehicle technician also advises this vehicle is at the point of increased repairs due to mileage and extreme duty. Most important is we can't afford to have vehicles out of service. Our command cars are used every day, and the increased call volume, inspections, training are putting more wear and tear on every vehicle in our fleet. So one of the questions I anticipate is, why do we use a Chevy Tahoe as opposed to a smaller vehicle? We use it because of the large amount of fire gear, EMS equipment that we carry. It also provides the ability for us to tow our boats and trailers. Gives us increased ground clearance as well as superior handling
and the heavy snow and soft sand. If a 2024 Tahoe was ordered today, we would hope to have it in approximately 10 months. There are no longer any police package 2023 Tahoes available, and we've done extensive research and searches, and there's nothing out there. The 2024 models had an increase of about $9,860 over the 2023 models. There will be very limited stock available for 2024, and the reason is because the 2025 is getting a big upgrade. So it's important to try to get an order in as soon as possible to secure this vehicle. Our vendors advise to expect the same increases for a 2025 model if we did not end up getting a 2024 model. The increase is being seen across all the major manufacturers. The cost of this request includes a command box, which you can see on the back of this vehicle, emergency lighting and upfitting, installation of all the radios, removal and reuse of the old radios from the 2016 vehicle, installation of a computer, modem, antenna, and mount. We will be repurposing all the firefighting equipment you see from the old vehicle to the new vehicle. The vehicle we are proposing to replace brought in approximately $11,420 in revenue from inspections last year, and that is prior to our fee increase, which was just approved. So in this picture, you can see the command box, you can see the firefighting gear, radios, there's a thermal imaging camera back there, there's a flashlight. If we can go to the next picture. Great, excellent. This is the front of the vehicle. You can see it's outfitted with a command console to hold our radios, lights and siren controllers. You can see the computer there. And then if we do one more picture there, thank you, Michelle, we can see more gear, our self-contained breathing apparatus. You can see a fire extinguisher. You can see the backs of the radios mounted there. These are stocked full of equipment. All of our Tahoes are like this. And that's because all of our, from administration to our captains, they were all expected to respond, and we need this equipment in the vehicles. And with that, I would just open it up for any questions that you might have.
Fernando.
Yeah, Chief, thank you for that. So yeah, eight years you've had the vehicle, 130,000 miles, and yeah, it's time to replace. I'm just wondering, why are we doing it? Was this part of your Article 6 for this March annual town meeting? Did you have that request in there, and it's because of the timing? That's why you want to use ARPA funds right now to be able to get access to a vehicle rather than wait until July? Is that the reason why you're bringing it forward?
Yes, so it was brought up, and it was an item that there was not funding available for. So I tried to come up with a way to alternatively fund it. And I worked with Mary and Rainey and came up with this option.
So it wasn't, okay. So even a vehicle of this age, this mileage, what the funding capital request wasn't supported by the fiscal advisory and the finance committee?
So, if I may, Chief?
Yes.
Absolutely, please.
So Fernando, it was simply a limitation on the available funding, and the committee did their review and prioritized the requests, and we simply ran out of money at the when we got to the bottom of Article 6, and these three items that are before you were essentially next on the list for review, but the fiscal advisory committee did not have an opportunity to program those because we ran out of money prioritizing the other requests.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Amy.
I'm glad we found the ARPA money.
So two questions. So, and I just, because I had the same written down on my thing, was to ask about, fiscal advisory is usually the committee that kind of keeps track of the fleet, right, if you will. Is my understanding, is that correct? Mary, doesn't fiscal advisory take care of they kind of look at the fleet?
Like any committee, fiscal advisory can reviews the information, but they're not managing the fleet.
No, I mean that they look at the fleet and then they bring forward based on age and recommendations. It's somebody's looking at that and then determining when these vehicles come up. And so I wonder, were they aware that this vehicle needed replacement, or did they weigh in on this?
So Amy, when I gave the list to the fiscal advisory committee, these items were certainly on the list, but the list was lengthy. And the list was given to them in priority order by ranking from Rainey and I vetting them. And we got to a certain point where we simply ran out of whether it was free cash or ambulance receipts or other viable options. And once we went back and took a look at where we stood with ARPA funding, we were able to reprogram some needs into the ARPA program. So that's what we're talking about tonight.
Okay, and then my other question, these vehicles, Rob, they don't go home, do they stay on site at the fire department, or do they go home with the firefighters? What is the use of these when they're not at a fire or at a situation?
Sure, we have ones that stay at the station, and there are ones that are assigned to administrative staff that are take-home vehicles.
What about this one? Is this a take-home vehicle?
This will be, correct, yes. This will be assigned to the deputy chief, who's on call 24/7 and responds back on a regular basis to supplement on-duty crew. I'm sure, as you're aware, I've said it plenty of times, the deputy and myself respond back on a regular basis to supplement staff to cover calls.
Yeah, and I know that that's been a problem in the past. Making sure we had somebody, available and on call, and we've looked at that. And so for this particular vehicle, where will it go back and forth to at night when it's not at the fire station? Is that in?
I don't, wait, if it's going home with a public safety official, we cannot reveal the location.
Just wondering how
There's
far
privacy
it's
laws.
traveling. All right, thank you.
But it's gonna be used in
Sure.
responding to calls.
Yes.
So it's not like it's gonna sit in a garage somewhere and,
Right.
It's not,
I don't think
it's
it's
not
going
going to
to
New
be
Hampshire with
No,
skis
I
on
mean,
it, right?
we've had
It's,
some
Really?
people that work far away, but,
And that may be the case, Amy, but we have privacy protection laws that we have to abide by for our first responders here in the town.
Mary, I'm not trying to violate anybody's privacy. I'm just, watching out for the taxpayer and wondering how much this vehicle will be commuting. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, you make a good point on that, although, thinking of the taxpayer, I think it's also good to have that person be able to respond at a moment's notice with the
Absolutely.
vehicle.
Back to the fire
Right,
station
yeah.
first, and,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have anything, Brian?
No?
No, me either. I think this is, seems like a very good use of the ARPA funding to me.
Yeah.
And is there any left after this?
Yeah.
Something.
There is.
$368,224, excluding interest.
Yeah.
All right. I move that the select board approve the use of $79,000 in ARPA funds for the fire department staff vehicle requested as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Chief, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Town managers report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been all about town meeting, as you might imagine. I'm going to pass out the long-range agenda for you, so you can each have that. If you have any questions, you can let me know. In addition to the, I'm sure you all received it, but just in case, I also wanted to give you the long-range schedule.
This one that I printed in grayscale?
Outstanding. Now you can have a
Yeah.
color one, and then
There you go.
So yeah, as you take a look at the long-range agenda, I do need to clarify though, Fernando.
Yes, sir.
The next available meeting would be for the limited entry fishery discussion. That would be March 18th.
March 18th, okay?
Do you want me to just email Joe and Jake and Dick and see if that works for them?
If I can do that, or you can do whichever.
I think I will, because I'm gonna be the one creating the agenda, so it'll.
Yep.
But I just wanna make sure that date works for the rest of you folks.
I'm here.
Is that gonna be the overall discussion about the bay?
No, it's only related to the limited entry fishery. It is
Yeah.
not the state of the bay.
Let's be really clear, right? When we use the language, right? So this is about the oyster fishing. It's not about nitrogen, state of the bay.
In fact, I'll
That's-
read you the agenda item. It's
Yeah.
gonna say, discussion and possible vote pertaining to proposed changes to the Town of Duxbury Shellfish Aquaculture Grant Regulations Grant Program, limited entry fishery. That's all it's gonna be. It is not
But
the state
Amy
of the
is
bay.
gonna answer your question. Your question is, what is going on with the bay? Are the oystermen taking up all the resources? Nobody can sail anymore and all that? Is that's what you want to have answered? We will have a conversation around that.
And that's
But
on the
you're saying
4th.
we're limited to
Well, wait,
only
no.
discuss,
No, no,
discussion
when
the
we
agriculture.
Sorry, the
then.
state of the bay
Yeah.
is about nitrogen loading. We're not gonna talking about
Yeah.
nitrogen. That's a separate item that the Duxbury Bay Commission is also working on.
And that's gonna be when?
The,
To be
again,
determined.
we have met with the Agricultural Commission.
Yeah.
In fact, they've got a meeting with Renier talking about the first step, which is about education and a website. So
They
progress
do?
has been made with relation to the state of the bay and the concern about nitrogen loading. So they are
Who has a
working on it.
meeting with me?
What's that?
Who has a meeting with me?
But Peter quickly sent you a meeting request.
Oh, okay.
I know you're busy right now, and I know
Okay.
he was gonna pay you a visit, right? But it probably after town meeting.
Have they done anything as far as, well, this is part of the discussion, you know, as far as monitoring nitrogen or?
Yes, there's work, there's lots of people doing monitoring of nitrogen
Okay.
out there.
So it's more than just an educational?
That's the
Yes,
first,
yeah,
first,
okay, all right,
the first
all right. And you
step.
still want to be here for the, talking about the oysters?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
because I
Fine.
do, so
Fine, no, that's fine.
I want to make sure that I understand what the discussion is going to
Yeah.
be on March 18th.
Yep.
Because there's a lot to talk about with the bay, which
Yeah.
is what I think we're hearing right now. And
Right.
I have no problem setting aside the state of the
State of the
bay, which is a more in terms of the nitrogen issues and the water quality
Yes.
and that kind of thing. That can be
Correct.
a separate, but what I'm hoping can be included in the discussion about the aquaculture, the leases,
Yes.
and the bay management from the
Yes.
bay is the use
Yes.
of the bay and what, I don't like to use the word competing interests,
Yes.
but sometimes it seems like that from what I'm hearing. So
Good.
what I do think that there's people who are interested in talking about this. So on the 18th,
Yes.
the discussion will include those different activities that are.
Correct.
And the only thing it will not include is the water quality
Right.
state of the water.
State of the bay, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
We will have a good discussion, and depending on the outcome, it might continue, but
All right,
it's a
great.
start.
All right.
Okay, Rainey, you got more for us?
Yep, and then, let's see, you've got the other things out there that you asked for, and I did add, it's not on here, obviously, because I just handed it out, item 14, which is MBTA Communities Info, so we'll have an update added to that as well.
Although we are in compliance so far, I know that.
So far.
Yes.
So
Correct.
that's, there's nothing imminent that.
No, it's just-
That's gonna run off the
The
rails, so
governor
to
won't be
speak.
yelling at
but-
us anytime
Right.
soon.
But we're not,
What about-
we're not in a
Brian, are you-
situation like other communities
Yeah.
that are behind the 8 ball.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
but Brian, you did, I heard correctly, 31st of December 2024, we are meant to be having a zoning amendment
Yes.
approved by the Attorney General and a plan submitted, application submitted. You heard that as well, right?
I heard that.
Okay.
I have my own opinion as to how feasible that is, but
Right, that's
yes.
fine, that's
Yes.
fine, we need to discuss
Sounds
it.
like a special town meeting.
Yeah.
All right, Rainey?
That was it, that's
Oh,
all I
that was
got.
it, wow,
Could
okay.
I bring up two things? And I thought, Randy, we talked after the last meeting, and you were gonna clarify some efforts that have taken place regarding some of the misinformation that had occurred at the open forum at the last meeting. And you were gonna follow up with efforts.
Yep, and I will do that under the guise of the discussion of the,
Oh, you were gonna, okay.
The
You must
moratorium.
have forgotten what we talked about, but that's okay.
Yes,
no, I did not forget, I just didn't have time.
It's gonna be that.
Okay.
is item number 9,
Yeah,
right?
you were gonna say something, that's okay. And then the only, if I could just comment on the schedule moving forward. And I completely understand, a summer-type schedule where, there are many Mondays that we have no meetings, and, you know, I'll be guilty of taking, some time off in August. I have a family wedding. However, with our list of, agenda items that need to be addressed, with a looming, threatening possibility of override, with all of the issues that are facing the town, I fear that, that this is not, that this is, really probably not a good idea to have, a summer-type schedule. I'm sorry to say that, I know that, you know, it makes it easier for everyone, but I don't think we have the luxury of, taking this many, meetings off. So.
Well, if I may, a few things. Meeting weekly isn't gonna solve any override question, because the mechanics of, I didn't know if you were listening.
I'm listening, yeah.
The mechanics of going through
I'm just watching.
figuring out an override issue isn't gonna happen here. It's gonna happen at the staff level during the course of weeks. It isn't, the decision ultimately gets rendered here, but meeting weekly isn't going to bring you any closer to rendering the decision. That's all kind of behind the scenes work with the committee that I'm gonna put together to discuss that. So week to week to week isn't gonna resolve it. Plus, 3 of these are federal holidays, so they're days off anyways. Also, we need a break, because we go at this, staff goes at this week after week after week. Myself, personally, you know, it's 3 or 4 meetings a week for a 6-month run. It's a lot of work for Nancy, it's a lot of work for Michelle. I see no reason why we would need to not have a summer schedule. If the need arises that we have something pressing and we need to meet, we can certainly do that. And we've done that on many occasions, even when it's not a Monday. We met most recently on a morning. So if there's something pressing, we can always add it back in, but it's necessary for staff.
Can I just ask a clarifying, you are gonna form
I am.
a committee, right? With
Yep.
representatives from all the.
Yep.
Well,
So
and
I'm
that-
looking forward to getting nominations from the select board to.
A committee for what?
participate in that.
I think we're talking
discuss
cryptically
an
here.
override.
This,
No,
I think
that,
what you're
yeah.
saying is that in response to the concern, the possibility of an override, that what you're proposing is to put together a group
Yes.
that will do an in-depth analysis.
Yeah,
of-
dissect the issue.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think we need to kind of make that public. You know,
But
I
no,
think-
I have.
Rennie already has made that public.
Several
Sorry,
times.
To be fair,
Alright.
he has.
Okay,
Many
good.
times, yep.
I mean,
He has.
but, you know, because I think it's important that we are doing everything possible to avoid that. And I think that, again, I'm the first to say it's great to have Monday evenings off. And if the rest of the group is comfortable with this agenda, you know, I know that the lead to town meeting and the efforts that are involved in town meeting is a lot on the staff. It's a lot of work, you know, you guys, it's a lot. But then when we go in, you know, we go from March, the town meeting, and then we all kind of take a rest and go into the summer schedule. Before you know it, we are into September, and all of a sudden, we're talking budget for the you know, up next year. And it just seems like we don't have enough time to get what we need to get done. And I am hopeful that right after town meeting this year, and, you know, with the first meeting, we typically, you know, reorganize the board and we, you know, start afresh, if you will. I'm really hoping that the board can take take some time and discuss priorities for the year. And set a list of goals and priorities, really kind of working from this list, because, you know, we're not recreating the wheel. We have a list of things, and I think we need to let the public know what our top priorities are, what we're really focusing on, and it helps all of our boards and committees. It helps, I think, us, and I know it helps staff if they know what our priorities are and what our policies are. I mean, that's our job, is to set the policies, and then everything works off of that. So I'm really hoping to, you know, jump in at the beginning of the new year after town meeting, and try to get a real head start on some of this, because it feels like, oftentimes, I'm gonna say it feels like I'm spinning my wheels. Like, we're working hard, and we're doing we're doing a lot, but we're not getting it done the way I'd like to.
Amy, I think, well, I reflected at a meeting that we had with the school committee, and one of the school committee members asked, you know, what is the aim, the goals and objectives, you know, what are your priorities? It was asked of the select board. And I think, yeah, after town meeting, when we get the new select board in place and the new roles, I think it would behoove us as a select board to sit down and have a conversation on what our priorities are. Where do we want to spend our time and energy? And then with that, we can set the schedule for that. Some of these things here have been on there for a long time. Are they part of your priorities? Then we need to get them further up the list, so to speak. And I think Rennie has made that statement. He would also like to have more clarity from the select board as to what our priorities are. So I concur. The start of the new season for the select board on March 25th would be a good time maybe to sit down and have a conversation. And that will help as part of our performance management process with Rennie to give him direction, and we can establish that as part of his goals that we're hoping that he will help us achieve as a select board. So, concur.
That's my report.
Okay, thank you. I think that, just quickly, to Amy's point about the schedule, I think it can be, as Rainey said, changed at any point if we can add a meeting back in. But it's busy for us too.
It is.
Going into town meeting and attending all those finance committee meetings. Okay. Let's see, I think we have a one-day liquor license request.
Ready for the motion?
Yeah.
I move that Ms. Megan M. Koss, as a representative of the Community Garden Club of Duxbury, is granted a one-day wine and malt license to hold a Blooms at the Art Complex Museum on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024, at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Art Complex Museum, 189 Alden Street, Duxbury, contingent upon the conditions of the license.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. That'll be a fun event. And some event permits. The first one is the annual Best Buddies Challenge.
Paul Curley.
Anybody here for any of these? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know who all these. Okay,
I move that Mr. Paul Curley, as representative of the Best Buddies Challenge Hyannisport and participants in the 25th Annual Best Buddies Challenge bicycle ride to be held on Saturday, June 1, 2024, are granted permission to travel through Duxbury and to use the Duxbury Senior Center as a rest stop and contingent upon the conditions of the permit.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Then we have the Duxbury Fitness 5K.
I move that Ms. Anne Marie Winchester, as representative of the South Shore Race Management LLC, is granted permission to hold the 5th annual Ducks Fit Pinewood Animal Hospital 5K road race in Duxbury on Sunday, June 9th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and contingent upon the conditions of the permit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, can I maybe just a point of discussion, I should have
Okay.
asked it for
Yeah, yeah.
Dudley's best,
For the
the
best
previous
buddies?
with the best buddies, right? If, I just want to clarify, these are basically outside Duxbury events, right? If they require police detail or police blocks, they pay for those details, is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely, yep.
So this is another one that, yeah, okay, so both, right, everybody who is paying for this, right?
Well,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, just to pick up on that point, take it a little further. I see that these are different days, so we're not, jamming in a neighborhood with lots of different things in close succession, but they're also in different parts of town. But the one thing that isn't clear to me, and I'm sure we would have folks here addressing us if there were an issue, but the affected residents who either have, this going by their house or that sort of thing, how are they notified, or how do we get the word out to folks on these streets, if at all, that the events are going on
This
during?
meeting, the newspaper.
And there's also a
and if-
phone thing.
Yeah, if there's,
Or
they
email.
do signs or whatever, so they know, so people know where they're going.
Well, I know that
They go right down by my house, too.
Well, I know that the departments all look at this very carefully, which is
They
great,
do.
and I appreciate having the input of those departments in our packets, so I know that, public safety's looked at it and that sort of thing. But I also want to make sure that, if somebody's planning a First Communion event on a Sunday, that, that they're gonna have, adequate parking, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, your point is well taken. There's been members of the public, one of which is whom sitting here this evening, who have talked about this issue in that, they notoriously happen on a Saturday or a Sunday in the middle of the summer, and there are certain streets that are more utilized than others, and here she's gonna speak to it, I think, right now.
Susanna Sheehan, Powder Point Avenue. Just looking at the Best Buddies Challenge, it doesn't clearly state, but if it goes from Route 3A, Tremont Street, onto Chestnut Street, onto Bay Road, doesn't it mean it's going through Hall's Corner? That's a Saturday morning on June 1st. I think in the past, what the town used to do to get the word out to residents is they put out the signs that said road race on certain dates.
Yes.
They also did reverse 911 calls to tell you that it was, and those two things were very helpful, and I'm not sure if they're being done recently.
Now we do it with email notification right off the website.
And as I've said before, not everybody gets emails. There's some elderly people in the town. My mother's one of them. She's 89. Doesn't work the computer anymore, but she answers her phone.
Well, aren't the emails opt-in anyway? I think you have to sign up for those, as opposed to reverse 911 that you just get, right?
Yeah, a lot of people don't even have landlines anymore, so it's.
You have to opt in on the reverse 911, too.
Do you?
Mhm.
Okay.
They both opt in.
Okay.
It's not automatic.
And to be clear, I mean, these are all worthy causes, and the community is supportive, but I just want to be sensitive to folks who are most directly affected. They don't go by my house, I'm on a cul-de-sac, right? Unless they want to go around. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did we vote on this, or did we?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we did vote on
we
this.
did.
We did.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so there's one more, right?
Yeah, wait a second, I'm sorry, I keep getting maps up, hold on. That's, what is this? Okay, the Duxbury Educational Foundation, July 4th, road race.
I move that Ms. Catherine Leitner, as a representative of the Duxbury Education Foundation, is granted permission to hold a road race on Thursday, July 4th, 2024, beginning at 6 a.m. registration to approximately 11 a.m. as described in the application materials and contingent upon the conditions of the permit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Then we have one round of minutes from open session minutes from January 29th.
I move to approve the 1/29/24 Select Board open session minutes as presented.
Second with a comment.
Yeah.
I had provided this to Michelle, but it's very, very minor. It was under the Ellison Fund distribution, page 3. I think it was page 3. It was referenced somewhere to a green wall. It should have been green monster.
Green Monster.
Yeah. That was third page, yeah. That was it.
I have left field wall.
So how about as amended?
Yeah.
As amended, yep.
Right, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Announcements? Were there any announcements?
The annual special town
Yep.
meeting. A reminder that the annual special town meeting will be held on Saturday, March 9th, 2024, beginning at 9 a.m. in the Performing Arts Center at 73 Alden Street. Check-in begins at 8 a.m. Lunch will be served cash only. Number 2, early in-person voting for the presidential primary will be at the Town Hall Mural Room, 878 Tremont Street, Duxbury, Mass. During the following dates and times: Tuesday through Thursday, February 27th through February 29, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is the normal business hours. And on Friday, March 1st, from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., normal business hours. The presidential primary voting will be on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, at the Lieutenant Timothy J. Steele Building, 130 St. George Street, Duxbury, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Number 3, the 2024 dog licenses are available. Reminder, all dogs over the age of 6 months must be licensed annually. There will be a late fee in the amount of $25 assessed for each unlicensed dog as of April 1st. The next scheduled select boards meeting will be Monday, March 4th at 2024 at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Bonus shellfish season.
I move that the select board declare a temporary bonus shellfish season for the commercial harvesting of soft-shell clams for the month of March, the commercial harvesting of quahog clams for the month of March, and the recreational harvesting of soft-shell clams for the month of March. The regulations are attached.
Damn, that was good.
I know, I'm so good at the shellfish season.
Don't blow it now. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.